Welcome everybody once again to Ballet Cosplay Safety here on the Extreme Anime Radio YouTube channel. Joining us now as our guest is one of the newest cosplayers of our mascot, Sarah Yoshida. Please welcome Jerikandra. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
How's everything going with you lately?
It's been interesting. I've been talking about it, but I've had knee surgery recently, so that's making me not so mobile lately. But
understood. Well, glad to see that you're doing okay and feeling better. This is the first time that you're joining us here on Extreme Anime Radio in general. So before we go into talking about ballet and cosplay safety, could you please just introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Jerikandra, and I got into cosplay in about 2013. I actually got into it from modeling. I was doing runway shows, and I happened to do a runway show for a cosplayer who was a designer, and she just wanted to show off a bunch of her costumes. And she and I became best friends.
Oh, wow.
And at the time, the movie The Avengers came out, and I was like, oh my God, I've got to be Black Widow. Like, that is like, she looks so hot. She looks like empowered. Like, I want to be that, you know? And so I convinced this new friend to commission me. You know, I paid her really well, but commissioned me, make me a costume for Black Widow. And then I had this costume. I'm like, now what do I do with this? And so she's like, well, you go to Comic-Con. And so she took me to Comic-Con, which at the time it was just PAX West. So it wasn't even really a Comic-Con, but it was, you know, a video game con with still lots of costumes and stuff. And so, yeah, I experienced like several of these cons in a row, and I'd see her and a bunch of her friends like changing costumes all the time. And I'd be like, well, I guess, do I need more than one costume? And so I'd start like putting together like store-bought costumes. And then at some point, I'd say maybe 9 months later, I was like, all right, I want to know what it's like to make my own costume. And so then my friend Abby Sue Cosplay, she went and actually taught me to sew. I've never sewed in my life. And she taught me to sew, she taught me to pattern, she taught me to work with spandex. She helped me, like, she was making my costumes before that, so this is probably a little bit of a burden off her that she didn't have to make them anymore. But yeah, she helped me kind of get into learning the ropes of basic seamstress work. And that propelled me in the direction of eventually into latex, which is a totally different kind of material to work with.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. What's your fascination? Because I think in some of your online social media handles, you call yourself Jerikandra Latex. So I'm just curious as to how that came about.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's kind of interesting. The latex in the last couple of years, it's gotten a little more mainstream. But when I was first getting into it in about 2014. It was still very like only fetish world kind of stuff. It's a very shiny and tight material.
Right.
And so a lot of people would like assume it's like for porn or something. It's just like it has a very kind of fetishy stereotype, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I took that and I was like, this looks sexy as hell. And I was like, we can turn this into some cosplay, you know, and just make it mainstream. And so the first couple latex suits that I wore for cosplay, I commissioned a latex designer to make me. And it was probably another year later that someone asked me, so, you know, you like this latex so much, are you going to learn how to make it? And I was like, oh, yeah, I guess I could try to figure that out. And so, yeah, so like I said, so Abby like helped me like learn all the sewing and get patterning and figure out all this stuff. And then I took this latex thing, and I did have another latex designer friend that would help me with patterning and figuring some stuff out. But for the most part, it was just a lot of research, a lot of trial and error, and eventually just started. This has now become the thing that I'm known for, I guess, is latex cosplays. Even though I still make spandex cosplays too. Latex is very hard to wear. There's a lot I could say about latex, so I don't want to go on and on.
Right.
But in that same vein, recently I started streaming video games and latex making and just live streaming in general. And I came up with a silly, stupid thing called the latex command in my channel, such that if you come into my channel, I'm going to latex you. And then it emotes that it's wrapping you in latex and have fun in the channel kind of thing. So.
I think you've done that to me a couple of times.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I try to do it every way that comes in. If there's a lot of people that come in at once, then it's hard to keep up. But
Jerikandra, and I should mention real quick, you're dressed as our mascot, Sarah. We appreciate
yeah,
that. But
yeah.
before we go on to ballet, very quickly, what would be your favorite latex cosplay?
Favorite cosplay in general is hard enough. Latex just adds another element. For me, it's usually my latest one that I've worked on.
Right.
But I also like to say Supergirl, just because I've made about 10 different versions of Supergirl, latex and spandex, and just I've made a Supergirl tutu. I've just made a lot of different versions and pieces and outfits for Supergirl. So
wow. Well, you were telling me before we came on for this interview, with regards to your experience in ballet, you only started just a few years ago. What made you start taking ballet?
yeah. How did it start? How it really started was my ex-husband, when we first got together and started dating. He took me to the ballet, and we'd both never been. It was just like, hey, let's try something new. And we both really loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got season tickets. It was the Pacific Northwest Ballet in Seattle. And we were season ticket holders for several years of our relationship.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even know, for the longest time, I didn't think that you could take classes unless you'd done so as a child. And I never got the chance as a kid. And so it wasn't until like 2016 or something, maybe 17, that I read an article about adult ballet classes, and I was like, "What? That's a thing?" and so yeah, immediately I started researching it. I found a bunch around the Seattle area, and I actually conned my bestie into going with me to the first set of classes, because she had done ballet a little bit as a kid as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that kind of started off. I mean, for several years after that, I was taking ballet classes at a couple different places, and then I kind of landed in my current class. Belltown Ballet is the one I attend regularly. Although currently with a knee surgery, I'm on a break.
Right. How did it all continue on into point work for you? Around when did that start?
Yeah, so I started out in one set of classes, and you had to pay ahead for like a semester kind of thing.
Okay.
And then at some point that was only on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I wanted more.
Mm-hmm.
So I found out this other one in Seattle, Belltown Ballet, and started to go to them because they were drop-in, and so I could go anytime I wanted on the extra chance I had time to take some more ballet class.
Okay.
And so after I attended that one for a while, the teacher just said at some point, and she's like an older lady, awesome person, great teacher, but she's just very encouraging for adults to jump into point. And so about 6 months in, and she's like, you've been coming enough, and I think you could really benefit from getting fit for some point shoes, which is the important first step.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually just spending a lot of time at the bar with them, and just the bar. So
right. That's amazing that you jumped into that with so little time.
Yeah, I know. I was surprised too, and again, blew my mind, because I was like, wait, I can learn point as an adult? Like, I didn't even know I could. So she's like, do you want to try some point juice? And I was like, yeah.
Right. Well, given the amount of time that you've been into ballet, and your understanding of how everything works, what would you suggest to somebody who wants to integrate ballet into their upcoming cosplays?
Yeah. So since we're here talking about ballet safety, so point shoes are very particular. For example, my first pair of point shoes, I got fit for at one place, and I have big feet. Let's be real. And so it was really hard to find. I didn't have a lot of choices, and I could not, even with the right toe pads and all the stuff, it was hurting. It still hurt to go on point, but I didn't know any better, right? Like it was my first time in point shoes. I didn't know that it wasn't supposed to hurt. And And so after a while, my teacher and my arches weren't looking right. Like she's like, yeah, those aren't fitting right. She kept saying. And so I ended up going to another place that refit me for a different pair. And those are the pair. That's the pair that I've ordered over and over again since then. And I guess I'm just saying all this to like explain that just getting fit for the right shoes alone is such a big deal. Because with the old shoes, like it was a lot of pain, and I was hurting my feet, I was hurting my toes, and with the new pairs, I can tell when they're wearing out because I start to get that feel where I can feel the floor on my toes and stuff. But for the most part, they're a lot better. So,
All right. I remember that we spoke about some of the cosplays that you've done integrating ballet. Of course, we're a big fan of the Sarah ones that you did for our 20th birthday, which really appreciate, complete with the nice birthday cake and everything.
yeah, that was a fun little Photoshop that I did.
But some of the others you've done in the past, I think you mentioned you did one with Tinkerbell and one with Spider Gwen, which you call your Gwen ballerina, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So just tell me briefly about those two.
Yeah, so Tinkerbell, I think you said that's how we met. Actually, you might have seen some of my Tinkerbell photos. Right. So Tinkerbell is a latex Tinkerbell, and I've always wanted to be Tinkerbell, but it wasn't until I'd already like been, practicing point and taking ballet classes that I was like, oh, I can make a Tinkerbell, make it a latex, be unique. And the thing I like about latex is that it's kind of niche, it's unique in the community, especially in the cosplay community. And so if I can add latex to things, that makes me feel like I have something special, because there's a lot of people doing the same costumes and stuff like that, and Tinkerbell's way overdone. So I made a latex dress basically with some transparent latex up here, so it looked like it was a what's the word, tube top dress. And then I painted a pair of my older point shoes. So basically a pair of my point shoes that had mostly worn out, green to match. And because I just thought to myself, Tinkerbell, I think Tinkerbell would look good on point. I think that it just fits, And so that's how I just came up with that. And it was a hit. Like everybody at the Comic-Cons, like they want to get your picture with Tinkerbell. And then you go up on point in Susu and they're like, whoa, what? Like, they don't even realize that you can go on point, that you're taking ballet class. And so, yeah, it was really good.
And what about the Spider Gwen?
Yeah, and then Spider Gwen ballerina. At some point, I wanted to start making tutus. Not latex yet. I actually want to work towards making a latex tutu. That's a huge endeavor.
Interesting.
I've thought about doing a black swan latex tutu. I think that would be cool.
Oh, okay.
But like with other things, when I first made my latex Ariel, it was so it's a latex shell bra. I had never made a bra, and so I need to make a bra in regular fabric first, so I can kind of understand the process. And so similarly, I was like, well, I want to do a Spider Gwen, but again, everybody does Spider Gwen, and she's obviously in point shoes as well. And so I was like, I could make a tutu version of her. And so this is one of my first costumes that I've designed myself, because I'm not a designer. I'm more of a, hey, I'll look at reference pictures and I'll copy and make these things. I don't make original costumes very much. And so it was kind of cool to actually like get fashion forms and actually try to draw and like design what I wanted it to look like before I even started learning how to make it. But yeah, so I made a 10-layer ballet tutu. I had to buy special patterns, special fabric, special ballet netting. They don't like to call it tulle. And it is much crisper than regular tulle. Tulle is very flappy and stuff. So yeah, it was a huge process to make. And then I had an awesome photo shoot with it. Again, painted another pair of old point shoes, the teal, to match for the Gwen ballerina costume.
Nice. We know that we'll be talking to you about future Sarah Yoshida cosplays, but do you have any other ideas for cosplays in the future that you might integrate dance into?
Yeah, so I also made, so in this pandemic year, I've made a few costumes that I haven't properly gotten photo shoots of. And so after I made this first tutu, being a spandex and latex person, designer, seamstress, whatever you want to call it, I decided that I wanted to try making a stretch tutu. And so I ended up trying that, and that ended up being a Supergirl stretch tutu. And so I'm hoping to shoot that at some point as well. So that one's actually already made. As far as like future ballet cosplays, I'm not quite sure yet. I have a huge long list of cosplays that the order tends to get out of whack all the time. So yeah, so it really just comes like if something really comes to me and I'm like, nope, I gotta do that right now. Or if it's something that just slides into my list and then after a month or two or a year or two, I'm just like, hey, I haven't done that yet. Let's do that. Yeah, it'll happen.
Some of the cosplayers I've spoken to before have a similar thought process.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common in the community. There's just so much, and I joke about this. I've been making music video parodies in my free time in the pandemic, and one of them is called Useless Costumes, and in it I actually complain about all these costumes I've made, and then I'm like, screw it, I'm just gonna play video games in the pandemic, and then I'm like, the only bad thing about that is that playing these video games makes me want to make the cosplays from the video games, and so there's just no end.
Why don't you tell us real quick before we wrap things up about your Twitch channel?
Yeah, so as far as the pandemic, really, I hadn't played video games in a decade because I've literally all my free time has been spent making costumes and then I go to about 8 to 10 Comic Cons a year.
Wow.
And so I like to have just a lot of new costumes, make about 5 to 6 a year new. And so when the pandemic hit, it's just like suddenly I lost all drive to do any of that because I couldn't go to any of these Comic Cons anymore. And so I started playing some video games for the first time in a decade. And at some point I'm just like, I'm sitting here all alone and I want to hang out with people. And I'm just like, what's the deal with this live streaming thing? And so I got on Twitch, I researched it, I got on Twitch and I started like meeting people and now that's kind of been integrated into my life, into my schedule. Even as the pandemic opens up, I'm going to be streaming on Twitch at least a couple times a week. A mix of video games. I do video games, I do some fitness streams, I do some latex making or even just regular cosplay making streams, as well as an actual like chatting stream where I bring everybody up to date about what I've been up to and stuff every couple of weeks. So yeah, it's become a big part of my life and I see it going forward as being a continuing thing just for fun and just to like hang out with people without having to go out places. So, and I've made a lot of new friends that way too. So it's like I can't just suddenly, stop being in contact with all these awesome people. So.
Well, Jerikandra, thank you so much for hanging out with us here on YouTube, and we're looking forward to seeing more of your ballet cosplays, your latex cosplays, your cosplays, and all of your Twitch content as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, everybody. This is Extreme Anime Radio.